My name is Barry Allen Sears, a managing director and head of technology and operations audit at CLS Bank. CLS Bank does the majority of the world's foreign currency exchange on a daily basis. Graduated in 1993 from the University of Wyoming with a bachelor's in international relations and a bachelor's in German. I had kind of an odd path from the University of Wyoming to where I currently work and live in New York City. I met my wife, or then soon-to-be wife, at the University of Wyoming, and we drove across the nation, landing in New York City, where I did my MBA, and then began a career in consulting, and then ultimately in banking, which is what I've done for the last 20 years. I've worked in a number of different positions, but as it relates to internal audit, my current position, I've done internal auditing now, both as a consultant and now in industry for 20 plus years. Well, the primary purpose of my job is to assess the technology risks of an organization. In this case, it happens to be a bank. So anything from developing an application to cybersecurity and information security, to how the technology organization is structured to help the organization meet its business objectives. These are some of the areas that I look at in my job. And I get to interact with every level in the organization, which is actually one of the great parts in being in internal audit, in that I get to work obviously with staff in the organization all the way up to and including the C-suite and the chief executive officer. The other part of my job is managing people on my team, from staff to senior individuals who work for me. Those teams have ranged from a handful of people to hundreds of people. The third thing I would say that my job entails is managing expectations. Very often people don't like to hear that they may not be doing something as well as they should. So you have to be able to craft a very careful and thoughtful message so that people understand the concerns that you raise, but also work with them to find solutions to solve them. As it relates to technology risks and emerging areas of technology risk in organizations, I would say technology has been with us probably since the Department of Defense invented the internet, and computers have been with us since probably the late 50s. But the changes have really been as to the extensiveness that technology has come into our daily lives and our business life. If you think of accounting, it is very rare, certainly in the United States, that accounting is still done by hand in a general ledger. All of that is automated. When you think about the connectivity that people have and organizations have around the world, the importance of security within the internet and how people connect has become increasingly important, as well as the interdependencies in terms of whether the internet is up and people can actually do their work has taken on an increased amount of risk in organizations and around the globe. What I love about my job is the ability to work on very different things, probably on a monthly basis. My projects change at about 4 to 8 weeks. The teams change about every 4 to 8 weeks. And the other part that I really like about my job is working to solve complex problems. Nothing is very black and white as much as we might like it to be in the business world. And it really takes a lot of effort, energy, and in my case, a real interest in wanting to delve into the facts and circumstance of why an organization might have gone a particular route, and then trying to understand, well, what does that mean from a risk perspective, and then trying to help the organization craft a solution that helps address a particular problem that myself and my team might highlight. Those are the things I really enjoy about the job. One of the most challenging things that I've mentioned previously is we like to think of the world in very black and white aspects, and especially audit. It either is working or it's not working. But really, one of the challenging areas is dealing with the gray, right? The world isn't perfect. People don't necessarily want to do a bad job. Most of the time, people want to do a good job. So one of the challenges is really how do you navigate the gray areas in an organization? And I think also, how do you make reasonable statements? Unless, of course, something's really, really bad. And I would say it's rare, probably less than 5% of the time, is something so bad and so obvious that you have to have a very blunt message. Most of the time, the messages need to be more nuanced. So being able to navigate areas that aren't exactly clear and then drawing conclusions and articulating them to senior management is oftentimes one of the challenges I see with the teams. Some of the skills that I think people might believe are necessary to work on Wall Street and or in banking or in a global organization, I think are less true today than they were maybe even just 5 years ago, but certainly further back than that. And what do I mean by that? Some people would think, well, if you want to work in audit, you have to come from an accounting background. I don't have an accounting background. I have an international relations and linguistic background. That you have to be in finance. Nice, but not necessary, because in today's working world, companies are absolutely looking for diversity in their workforce. So regardless of your degree or your academic background, it doesn't necessarily mean you can't go into financial services or banking or internal audit. So I think it's a great time, whatever education path you've taken or whatever your life experiences are, that you could actually look at Wall Street, look at financial services as an area you might be interested in. So I think all cards are on the table, if you will. You're not limited if you don't have a particular academic background. And I think it's all about leveraging the strengths, if not exactly in, say, accounting or the financial areas. For example, if you're in biology or chemistry, those gravitate a lot to problem-solving skills, actually tremendous problem-solving skills that are directly applicable, I think, in the business world or in finance or Wall Street. So really be creative around looking at opportunities that leverage on your strengths. I think the other thing is learning is a lifetime exercise, regardless of the industry or area you go on. It's especially true in my space. Technology is ever evolving, ever changing. And regardless of where you are on the learning spectrum, I think continually learning beyond just your UW education is really important. And then the last piece, well, two other things I'll say: the critical thinking skills, communication skills, and technical knowledge. So what do I mean by communication skills? In my job, and especially on Wall Street, written and oral skills are tremendously important. You have to be able to cast a message to peers, to your management team, and to senior executives. And if you can't do that in what people often term the elevator pitch, you're gonna have limits. So I think working on crisp, clear messaging in the way that you speak, and then also in the way you write. And when I think about the technology knowledge, I don't necessarily mean technology in the sense of what I do in terms of bits and bytes and servers and databases, but regardless of your area, nobody knows it as good as you do. But you need to be able to talk about it in a way that a layperson can understand. So I would encourage you to work on those communication skills, both written and oral, and that can often open a door or actually accelerate how you might progress within an organization. Those would be a few of the things I think an individual, regardless of where they are in their career or their life, would want to think about in pursuing a job, say, here on Wall Street or somewhere in the financial markets. Well, one of the things that I message to students and professionals in general when I talk to them about their career and being successful, my observation is that there's three primary things and then one sort of icing on the cake that everyone should think about and recognize in their development and career pursuits. One, and they're not in any particular order, but one, tell a story. People love stories, right? I can see what you have on your resume. I don't need that to be regurgitated to me. I want you to tell me a story and pull me in to your life experience and what really drives you. Secondly, be bold. Most people want to toe, let's say, the party line or say what's been said by 100 other people. Now, it doesn't mean be arrogant, but be confident in what you know and what your story is about. I think that will take you far. And lastly, have a point of view. Now, this ties in with what many of you might hear from the Career Services Center around do your research. Well, I'm going to take that one step further and say, well, it's about the research, but given all the research that you do in seeking out your next position, think about what position would you take relative to the research that you found. So if you identify that, hey, this bank has a particular problem or a challenge that it's trying to solve, whether that be technology, business, a regulatory issue, have a position on what would you do if you were there to help them solve that problem. Most hiring managers want to have help trying to fix their issues. They may not admit what their issues are, but if you have a position on things that are in the public domain, I think that will carry you much further, both in the interview process, but certainly in the job if and when you get it. And the fourth piece, which is kind of the icing on the cake, is passion and grit, right? Be passionate about something. Nice if it has to do with your career, but it doesn't have to be. That's something that I can't teach you, but you have inherently in yourself. So you want to be able to demonstrate that you have passion about one or more things in your life, because guess what? That's going to translate to where you end up working. And grit is just tenacity, persistence in terms of driving forward. Don't listen to the naysayers about where you can't go and what you can't do. Think about how you can be persistent in driving forward, not only to where you want to get to, but even when you're in an organization. A lot of times, if the problems were simple, they would be solved already. Most of the time, you'll face problems that are challenging. They're daunting. They don't look solvable. But if you have tenacity and persistence, I am almost certain you'll succeed.